Happy Wednesday again, friends, and welcome to the Audit the Vote podcast. This is episode 35. I am your host, Tony Shoup, CEO of Audit the Vote PA and East Coast Ambassador for Patriot Academy. I have a very special, I think I say that every week. I can't help it because everybody is special to me. But my special guest this week is no stranger to Audit the Vote or the podcast. In fact, he's one of the two people that woke me up in March of 2020 and is responsible for me going down all of the rabbit holes and eventually getting to where we are today. So I'm looking forward to him giving us an update, sharing him with all of you, and find out post January 6th how things are going. He's backstage waiting. Before we get to that, though, got a couple of quick announcements. First of all, we are now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if you are listening to this and could give us a follow and you think that our content is worth sharing, please go ahead and share it, especially with folks that still think that January 6th was an insurrection. We are in a serious battle for the narrative of the truth of what really happened on that day. And I find that there's an awful lot of folks that you would even consider on our side, whether they're Republicans or independents, maybe even some Democrats, that are still convinced that January 6th was an insurrection. And the best way that I have found to kind of spark their interest and change their minds is to share an actual story with them from somebody that you know. And you don't even have to bring it up and be difficult about it. But if they start talking about it, that's your perfect window to ask a question and say, well, I actually know somebody, or I listen to podcasts with really people that were on the ground that day and what they happened. Would you be open to listening to something? Because I don't think it was an insurrection that they're making it out to be. So this is going to be a really good resource for that. So Apple Podcast, Spotify, which we are doing this on Wednesday, June 25th, and it will not be available till Friday on either of those platforms. So if you are watching live on YouTube or Facebook, X, Instagram, Twitch, I was going to say Twitter, but Twitter is X, or Telegram. Like and share this and subscribe to whatever your favorite platform is to help us build our audience and get to the top of the algorithm so that our message gets out. We're so thankful for all of you. It's the reason that I am still here and I did not move on to something else, which some days I ask the Lord, why in the world did you pick me? Why am I here? But it's all of you out there that are still watching and that are still encouraging me, and thankful that we still have a voice. And so like, share, and subscribe. And the last announcement I'll make before I play our first promo video is that I have been convinced our special guest tonight and his lady friend, who is also a good friend of mine, had dinner at my house last weekend, and they have fully convinced me to write a book. So yes, folks, I am going to be telling my story in a book, and I'm probably going to release it via digital version on my Substack account, where you can find me from Mom to Patriot. And I think if you are a paid subscriber to the Substack, you're going to get a digital copy for free when it launches. Now, we are still many months away from that, but I've been convinced. I've been thinking about it for a while and just didn't think I could pull the trigger, had the bandwidth to do it. But Brad and his lovely friend Lisette, who is also my friend — I shouldn't say she's your friend because she's my friend too — convinced me that I just need to bite the bullet and do it. So I will be working on that, and stay tuned. The first announcement that I have is Rebuilding Liberty, Patriot Academy's newest course, drops this Monday. And I know I'm not going to get fired for this, but I might get a little bit of slap on the wrist, and I'm okay with that, because our motto at Patriot Academy is that we ask for forgiveness, not permission. And I'm going to share with you guys just a snippet of week one that is Monday, June 30th, 8 Eastern. If you have not yet signed up to take this class, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. I put it on and was watching it as I was doing all the makeup, and no hair today. Stuck the hat on, so no hair. As I was doing all of this, I put the video on, and it's super short compared to the other classes if you've ever taken them, but it's so empowering. Rick Green goes through the Declaration point by point, and there's very tangible goals and things that you can do right now, that we can all do right now, to truly save this country. I was getting goosebumps listening to it. I absolutely cannot wait. So go to patriotacademy.com/rebuilding liberty. And if you have not yet signed up for it, honestly, just watch it like a show. Even if you don't necessarily have to be a coach or a host, although that would be great, and get your community involved. If that isn't feasible for you, just sign up for the class, stick your family in front of a TV and stream it and hit it play and make it be like the show that you watch for that week, because it's going to be less than an hour and a half from start to finish, even with the discussion with Rick Green and the other Patriot Academy staff. And so you could not be in a better spot right before the 4th of July, Rebuilding Liberty. It is so incredibly empowering. And I know Joel has the video queued up. So you guys first talk about an exclusive. If you are either signed up or you're not signed up, you are getting the first sneak peek outside of the Patriot Academy staff for week 1 of Rebuilding Liberty. Go ahead and Joel, roll it.
The purpose of this course is to make sure that they know why that flag is worthy of being waved.
Wherever you are watching from, we're not rebuilding a structure without giving the right foundation.
And our burden should be to transform a moment into a movement. The entire globe is moving towards the right.
Recommend this edition of the Bible to the inhabitants of the United States. I thought our founding fathers were a bunch of atheists, agnostics, and deists who wanted a secular public square, who didn't want the Bible in schools.
Fight like it's your last breath.
But know this, the truth is over the facts, that God's not giving you a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind.
What do I want my legacy to be on the way out? That I was safe or that I was dangerous?
Amen.
No, this nation is not perfect. I'll take America for any other country or nation on the face of this planet. How about you?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I get so crazy excited. Like I can't even contain myself. It is so awesome. I absolutely cannot wait. And I'm looking forward to all of you joining me. Hi, Mark. Hello to everybody that is in the comments that is watching tonight. Rick Green's pastor is in this. So if you're struggling with pastors that are still too afraid to speak out, one of the interviews that you saw a snippet of that I heard listening to the whole course was his pastor admitting that he dropped the ball, admitting that he saw COVID through the wrong lens, but he apologized and changed courses. And he's pleading to pastors to get on the right side of history. It is so amazing. I can't wait. patriotacademy.com/rebuilding liberty, Monday night, 8:00 Eastern. You have got to be there. We are going to change the country and save it together. So all that being said, without further ado, Joel, if you would pull in my friend of over 20 years, Mr. Brad Bennett. Man of Valor is his new venture. He is back with us on the Audit the Vote podcast to give an update about where things are going. And thank you for coming, my friend. It's so great to see you.
It's so great to see you too. I think my hair is trying to stand up here. It's getting excited about the video. That video fired me up too, Tony. Wow.
Didn't it?
Yeah, and I know Victor Marks, not personally yet, but I've followed him for a while, and he's one of my heroes. The things that he's done in dangerous places around the world and the topics that he dives into and the causes that he's about. I mean, trafficking is one of them. He is a warrior. He's a Marine too.
I didn't know if you knew him. I met him last year. He was the keynote speaker for the Leadership Congress that Patriot Academy has every August. He was their keynote speaker, and I met him. You know, he travels with, I think it's a German Shepherd, but a dog, because he still suffers from trauma.
That or Belgian Malinois.
Okay. You know a little bit more about it than I do. I didn't even know who he was. I should be ashamed to say I didn't know who he was until he was the keynote speaker there, but I loved him. His talk was phenomenal, and Rick has gotten to be pretty good buddies with him. And so, yeah, you need to come on down to Texas with us in August. And I don't know if he'll be there or not. Can't make any promises, but we got to hang together.
I'd love it. I'd love it. He's the best.
He is really good. We're going to cover some current events together. I wanted to share, Brad, with you really and truly. The reason I have a heart for the J6ers, of course, last week, episode 34, we had on the Brandon Strock, which I'm still kind of reeling that I'm even connected with this guy on the phone with him yesterday. He's an amazing human being doing really, really good things. If you don't support Walkaway, you should. That is truly how we make an impact and lasting change with hearts and minds. And then we take those that walked away from the lunatic left and we get them in Rebuilding Liberty, so they learn their rights. That's going to be so vital. Right. But it was an honor and a blessing last week. If you missed last week, especially if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go back and listen to episode 34. Brandon unpacks a lot of his story. He was the first, I didn't know this, Brad. Did you know he was the first American citizen to get banned from an airline for not wearing his mask?
He might have told me that. We talked on the phone 2 years ago, but I can't recall exactly.
So cool. So you connected with him too. Yeah, I mean, that completely, there was so much I didn't know. I knew about Walkaway, but he also talked about what they were doing, the summer of love in between then and the election. Of course, he was muzzled like the rest of you after getting into the January 6th crosshairs. But they were doing rallies between the summer and the election. He hit 19 cities in those few months, and they were doing basically Reopen America. I forget what he called them, Rescue America rallies, where he was essentially a super spreader, just like the rest of us were that summer. I didn't know all that about him. So if you don't know it, it's very inspiring. I think encouragement and inspiration and keeping us going is one of the main things that we are going to battle in this next season of life, is how do we navigate seeing all the craziness still around us and wanting to be so much further along. And yet here we are, being grateful for the journey where we're at and empowered to do what we need to do to get to the next level. Brandon's story does a beautiful job of that. And then the week before, we had episode 33, Stuart Rhodes. I should say the Stuart Rhodes, which, Brad, you're familiar with as well. Founder of the Oath Keepers, Yale attorney. See, the mainstream doesn't talk about these people. It doesn't tell you who they really are. He is a Yale-educated attorney, founder of the Oath Keepers, and wasn't even inside the Capitol on January 6th, and he was sentenced to 18 years in prison. 18 years. And unfortunately, we're praying for this. Please be praying for Stuart. He has not gotten a pardon yet. He's just has his sentence commuted, which means he got out of jail, but he still has, unfortunately, all the stain on his record, which he didn't have, by the way, prior to January 6th, in his late 50s. Right. Late 50s, traffic ticket was the worst thing he ever did. And then he gets 18 years, felony charges. So he still can't own firearms. He still can't vote. He's got just an uphill battle. So be in prayer for him. But I say all of that to tell you that this person that you're looking at right now, or that you're listening to, Brad Bennett, is the reason that I am here and that I have well, actually, that's not fair. Jesus is the reason we're here. But you were the human that the Lord worked through in March of 2020, Brad. When I woke up and said, what the frickety frock is going on here? And you said, here, watch this, study this. Look at this. And our paths intersected in a way that neither of us would have ever predicted or that we would have chosen, in that he was turning himself in and getting charged with crimes he didn't commit at the same time that Audit the Vote movement was starting to take off. So I'm having dinner with President Trump in August of 2021, and Brad is new out of prison, having to navigate the mental just capacity of what he's going to have to deal with a trial. And it has been a journey for you. And Brad, I'm honored to know you. Thank you for sending me those videos. Thank you for waking me up. And if you would, the first thing I'd like for you to share with the audience is, what is it like post being pardoned by President Trump? How does that feel?
Wow, that was great. Hey, everybody, I see these awesome comments over here. Some of my friends that are logged in too. And then if you're listening to this down the road, and log in and check it out. Hope we add a lot of value to you. My name is Brad Bennett. I live in the Charlotte area in North Carolina. Grew up in Central North Carolina in Greensboro. And obviously I was at the Capitol and endured 4 years of terror, really. But all things work together for the good of those who love him and are called by his name. And so God has blown my mind, saving my life and setting me on a course. Very difficult, mind you, very difficult course. But God has set me on a course to use all this and turn it for my good. And about being pardoned, I told you at your house with your husband Sunday that, like, I grew up watching true crime plenty of times in my life. And it was always odd when someone would be pardoned, but it's like they get a new lease on life. And I typically associated that with someone who had done some atrocious thing. You know, they were in jail for like a murder or something, but they had served a lot of time. Well, in this case, I've never done anything like that. I don't have some bad record or criminal record before this or anything. But to be pardoned by the president and to be fully exonerated. And by the way, it was completely wiped, nullified. Exonerated means you've been cleared. And to have that vindication moment is surreal, first of all. It brings me a deep gratitude, second of all. I made a video in like late January, I think it was. I remember talking on the phone with you that very day, I believe, and just thanking President Trump the best I could. I mean, there's no way to make a video and use words to tell him how thankful that you are. And I just saw one yesterday that was like a hodgepodge of like 20 or 30 J6ers. And I knew a couple of them, mainly by face or from Facebook or whatever, but they were just all trying their best to do the same thing and thank him. So it's very surreal. I don't have it framed yet in like a big thing on the wall like art, but I plan to, and I plan to make one for my mom to give to her. I think that'll mean a lot. She's probably been my most fierce supporter through this and giving me a lot of perspective, the best that she can. You know, 80-year-old sweetheart, pouring into me. And we go on a date, by the way, this is a side, but we go on a date every Sunday for lunch because for most of my life, I either lived an hour and a half away and just didn't see her that regularly, maybe every month or two or whatever. Check on her, call her, of course. And then part of my life, I was working overseas in difficult places and being a missionary and all kinds of stuff. And so now, since I guess June 7th, when I got out of jail, she started bringing me food and fattening me up with Chick-fil-A and buffet food and all kinds of sugary goodness that was
I thought you
delicious.
looked really
I don't know if
good
that helped
on
matters
Sunday.
with all I was dealing with in my body, but
you looked
she sure was
very
bringing
healthy.
love.
You looked very healthy when you came for dinner. That makes sense.
Okay,
now.
good. I have my moments. Okay, good. So we just turned it into like go out and eat every Sunday on a date, and it's so precious. So we've gone for 4 years, barely missed any ever, unless she's like traveling or something. But yeah, she's fired up about it too. So I thought I'd bring her into this whole conversation. She's so amped that the president pardoned me and that we've got to experience this. They have you send an email to DC to the pardon office, and then they send you a certificate like a few days later or whatever, and you're just like antsy waiting on that thing to show up. And finally it comes, and it looks pretty nice. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I had this big romanticized idea in my head. It'd be like this big, massive certificate with gold leaf and whatever. But I guess once I print it and put it in a frame, it can look like that. We'll make the frame all gold and big and bodacious.
I love it. The last time we had you on, we actually showed the pardon certificate. It was so surreal. I think you and I were probably both in tears. And again, the reason I have such a heart for these January 6ers is because Brad and I have known each other since we were in our 20s. We kind of, I hate to say grew up together. We grew up as adults, if that's a thing, because I think we're forever 25 in our heads. And meanwhile, we're in our mid 40s, realizing we literally graduated the same year. We graduated high school. We're the exact same age, Gen Xers. 80s, man. Do you like 80s music?
So cool.
I don't think you heard me. So he
so good.
At any rate,
we grew up around the same associations. We were maybe the voice didn't come through for some reason.
That is okay. There's a little bit of a delay, no big deal. We can edit it for Spotify and Apple, and I have loyal listeners that care more about the cause than they do about their streaming quality. So thank you guys. Please share this, like, share, and subscribe. And we're going to go into Brad's new venture, Man of Valor, he's going to talk about. But I interrupted you. Keep going. You're talking about your mom, having your mom lunch, the pardon, what that felt like, getting the certificate and framing it in gold. So keep going.
No, it's good. It was all right. I think we came to a pretty good stopping place there. And I did hear what you said, by the way, there. Yeah, it's surreal because you don't ever expect any time in your life that you would have something that closely tied to the president sent to you and accomplished and given to you, because he had to make a willful decision. And I hope to see the rest of the guys. I think there's probably around a dozen-ish that have not been pardoned, but their sentences, like you said, have been commuted, like in the case of Stuart Rhodes. That was a fantastic interview, by the way. I got a lot out of that. I know of him. I know that it's a travesty how they framed him, but since he's the leader of a massive patriot organization, of course, they're going to paint that, in the light that they painted it. And we're all basically a threat. You learn a lot, and you've even told me you learn a lot through this about things I didn't know about, like Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, for example. But there's a lot of different other groups out there. They detest. When I say they, like the deep state swamp, I guess, the judges, the prosecutors, and so they fabricate those narratives. But I don't want to get too deep here in case you're going to ask me that later or something.
Yeah,
but I'm
that's
grateful.
Good. Thank you. He's still breaking out a little bit. Just hang with us as we work through the connection issues. But let's talk about some current events. That's what I was starting to say. I forgot about the previous 2 weeks. There's a lot that's happened in the current events realm that we haven't had a chance to really cover because I've had some big heavy hitting guests on. And so with Brad, I wanted to kind of go through some of that stuff. And the first one obviously is the bombing of Iran. I think that dropped, Saturday night, the world stopped. Of course, our favorite long-haired voter registration friend was about to have a episode aired with Laura Trump on Fox News. And please don't take offense to this, but if he says anything about registering 50,000 people in Pennsylvania on that interview and they air it, we're going to need to see some receipts and proof. I have a feeling that interview is going to be pure propaganda, unfortunately, but it got bumped because the president bombed Iran. And I think I remember seeing something on social media about the president comes first. Well, yeah, nice of you, buddy, to put that plug in there for the president. I won't get too far down that topic, I promise. But the question that people had after that was, okay, wait a minute. Doesn't Congress have to declare war? Is it even possible for the president, or is it constitutional is a better way to say it, for the president to make that type of decision? And I, quite frankly, was asking the same thing. Of course, in the conservative movement, you have people all over the map in terms of Article 2, Section 8 says Congress does have to do this, but there's a lot more to the history and caveats behind this. And so I, of course, look to Rick Green from Patriot Academy because of his experience and background in history. He's a constitutional attorney, and he also has like a walking encyclopedia for American history. He knows all of the context. And thankfully, he put out, which I'm going to have Joel play in just a second, he put out a really good video while he was traveling at the airport and answered that question for everybody. And of all the responses that I have seen, and I've seen them all, I thought this was the most measured, the most sound, constitutionally sound, and yet the most measured at the same time. So if Joel has that video queued up, the warning, he's at the airport, in the very end, a siren of some sort goes off. And when I was listening to it, I had my earbuds in, and I started thinking that something was happening to my house. And it took me a good 5-10 seconds to realize that it was the audio from him in the airport. So hang in there towards the end. But Joel, go ahead and play that video, and let's learn why it was constitutional for the president to bomb Iraq.
Friends and fellow patriots, Constitution coaches, everybody that might be wondering about the constitutionality of what's happening right now. I'm just stepping off the plane, just reading all the news and realizing that we have bombed Iran. There's a lot of people I'm seeing in my feed questioning whether or not it's constitutional for President Trump to do that. So I apologize for coming to you half asleep, getting off the plane from the airport. This is too important to not cover as quick as possible. So first of all, yes, absolutely, it's constitutional for the president to use military power. Now, yes, Article 1, Section 8 gives Congress the power to declare war, but the president under Article 2, Section 2 is the commander-in-chief, and everybody from Jefferson to Reagan to Clinton and Obama have used that presidential power for these very same kind of things. And, the real question is, how long does it drag out? So you've got the War Powers Act from the 70s that technically says he's got to give, within 48 hours notice to Congress that he did what he did. And then within 60 days, they have to approve any further action. You can get a 30-day extension. Obama never got any of that, and Libya lasted longer than that. So there's examples that go beyond that. I'm not even sure you could argue the War Powers Act is constitutional in and of itself. But that's not the point. The point is, like I said, from Jefferson with the Barbary Powers Wars, all the way through, Reagan and Grenada and many, many other examples, presidents have done this. Whether or not he should do it is a whole other question, right? I know there's a lot of people on the right that are debating this. How far should we go in helping Israel here? In this case now, we have used American weapons to do these bunker-busting bombs. Look, I'm going to trust the guy in the room for a while longer. Sorry about the noise in the airport. I'm going to trust the guy in the room. I believe President Trump has proven himself to be somebody that does not want to put us into wars and that has kept us from being in extended wars. So I think he will use this power in a limited way and get us out of there, as quick as possible. But hey, that doesn't mean I'm going to be on board with it if it does end up in a long, extended, war like what we have seen in the Middle East in the past. I just don't think he's Bush. Let me put it that way. So anyway, all that to say, the constitutionality of it is the first big question that most people ask. And I just don't think there's any doubt about that at all. So, we'll see how far this goes. But again, I'm going to trust the guy in the room for right now. And, certainly it's risky. This is a very, very precarious time. I think it does show. I think there's a lot more to this than just Iran, Israel, and even just the Middle East. I think you watch, I haven't had time to watch the whole speech, but just some of the clips that I saw as I was getting off the plane, the fact that President Trump is saying very strongly, no military other than us on the planet could have pulled this off. I think he's speaking to the whole world right now. He's positioning us to deal with other conflicts around the world and show the rest of the world our strength. I think that's a good thing. It's peace through strength, right? We know that from Reagan. We know that that's really Donald Trump's mindset as well. He's showing strength now in order to get us to a point of peace or keep peace. And anyway, so we'll see. I would encourage everyone to be praying, obviously, for the president, praying for the people around him and the advice. Pray that this does not, shatter the MAGA movement. I don't think it will. I think there's going to be some people that are outliers, that are, rightfully concerned because of all the stupid things we did with Ukraine and the amount of money that we gave Zelensky and all these other world problems. Look, the problem is the lack of faith in the institutions, which is justified, right? They lost our faith in these institutions because of what they did with COVID, what they've done with the CIA and the FBI over the last few years. So they have earned the right for people to not trust them and not want our sons and grandsons to have to go into war unless we know that it truly is in our national interest. So I understand the debate. I get it. I'm not mad at anybody right now that is not happy about this and that has been saying that we should not be helping Israel. I'm not mad at them. I disagree with them. There's a lot of reasons to support Israel. There's the biblical commands, and even though Cruz could not, quote the chapter and verse, there's like 40 of them, so it's not just one or two. But anyway, the point is, we know biblically we're supposed to do this. We know that they are our economic and political ally in the Middle East. We know that we cannot have an Iran with nuclear weapons. There's a lot of reasons for us to actually support and be involved here. I'm sorry for getting into all that. My main point tonight was just to point out the constitutionality, and we'll have lots of opportunities to talk further about this. Be praying, again, for the president, for his advisors. Be praying for Israel. Be praying for the people of Iran, that they can be freed as a result of all of this. That's not what we're in the business of, but I think that could be a byproduct of this, and it can change how much of the terrorist support that they've been giving to all these organizations. Okay, I'm sorry. It's noisy in here. God bless. Have a great night.
So if you share nothing else from this podcast, follow Patriot Academy. That video has been posted. It's on patriotu.com, patriotacademy.tv. It's their streaming service. I think that was just a very measured way of looking at it. Combine it with the constitutionality. And then it wasn't a siren. It was the loudspeaker at the airport. Did you guys get a feeling like, wait, what's going on? Twice. I had that in my house. I had to stop what I was doing and remind myself, it's coming through the earbuds. It's okay. You don't have the FBI at the door. I think we're safe from that for a little bit moving forward. But all of that to say, Brad, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know I'm becoming more of, like Rick mentioned, I don't trust government. I don't trust war. I mean, clearly since World War II, it appears as though more often than not, it was a money-making scheme and it was a racket. And we had financial interest to get involved, which is why we did. And so I'm personally super hesitant to pull the trigger on something like that. So I would have, now I kept my mouth shut just because I know that I don't know an awful lot and I need to learn. So I wasn't about to start spouting off when I just didn't know enough to develop a good, solid, educated opinion. But I was definitely on the side of crap. Why are we doing this? And when I saw the memes that people were posting of President Trump looking like Bush-ish and saying, the black pillars, I guess we could call them, that are just like, Trump's one of them, deep state, we're in big trouble. I don't want to say I agree with that, but I was kind of, that it gave me pause. It gave me a little bit of uneasy feeling wondering that. What is and was your take on that whole situation?
That was really good. I don't know what happened earlier with me, but here we go. I'm glad you rolled the Rick Green video. Yeah, I'm in agreement with taking out their nuclear site. Trump has said for 10 to 15 years that they cannot be allowed to have a nuke because primarily their whole mantra is death to Israel and death to the USA. So they're very clear. They've made it very crystal clear their intentions for doing that kind of thing, as opposed to, in my opinion, our intentions right now are not to just go nuke a bunch of countries. I mean, it's been since Pearl Harbor, the aftermath of Pearl Harbor, since we did something that atrocious. With that said, I am absolutely anti-war. And so I know that people often can't separate what was done in that mission versus declaring war in Congress, which are separate acts, by the way. And I get it. I see how that appears to be a war, an act of war. Like, I get it. It's a bombing. But never mind the amount of tens of thousands of drone strikes during the Obama's 8 years either. We could bring that back up, right? And I'm a little rusty because I'm not in this lane as strong as I was for 15 or 20 years, but I think I've got a decent handle on what's going on. And there's a lot of complexities. And I don't say that as a cop out to not have something we stand upon or to have views about stuff. But everybody just reacts, like you just said, like in the first 3 seconds, they just react so emotionally. And I'm not for that. Like, how about let's let the SecDef, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, make those decisions. Let's let people who have served in combat make those decisions. Let's let the president, who is briefed on all the intel around the world that's happening, make those decisions. And are you double-minded? I mean, the Bible says a double-minded man's unstable in all his ways. So are you pro-Trump one day and not pro-Trump the next day? And I'm not advocating that we don't ask hard questions at all. Like, we've seen what that causes, just shutting out and silencing and canceling and blocking people. So ask hard questions, but this whole emotional reaction, like you or I or whoever listening has this fantastic military prowess to be able to analyze the things that go on like that is wild to me. So like, give it a little time and like think through it. How about studying? How about understanding like what Rick just explained? I'm with Rick. I'm fully on board. How about what he just explained about the constitutionality of that and removing that threat? And I do believe strongly, and this could go really deep and it could go into spiritual matters, but I believe there's a mandate, not just the electoral mandate of the electorate that we gave Trump, but I think there's a mandate on his life. I think he was created, he was born for this, and that's to get us out of wars and keep us out of wars and keep peace. But sometimes, like his phrase, peace through strength, sometimes you have to flex the arm to show that we're going to keep peace. Sometimes dad has to let everybody know, like, okay, it's 5:00. You kids have been running around like chickens with your heads cut off all day, and it's time to sit down and chill out. Dad's home now. And so just
that's great.
Leadership, parenting, right?
That's a great analogy. Dad's home. It's time to listen. Awesome.
That's strength.
Yes, I agree. And I wholeheartedly, I love getting your take on that too, because we're coming from, we live in different states. We have different perspectives. And it's really important, I think, in the conservative movement, we saw so much fallout from that. Big names and influencers going after one another. And, especially with Brandon and Scott Pressler, and I'm obviously made it very clear where I stand on that. I think what's important to remember is that it's okay to disagree, and it's okay to have civil discourse and bring that forward. In fact, that's one of the things that Rick really touches on in the Rebuilding Liberty course, is how important that is for a republic. Like, don't just, if you have some favorite influencers, if you will, that appear to be spatting back and forth, like, just take a breath, sit back and watch and start asking some questions. Like, I wonder why they're saying it. I wonder why they did that. Let's like look into this. Let's let the dust settle. Let's let some time go by, because there's three. I think you and I learned growing up together in the LTD Amway business that there's three sides to every story. There's his, hers, and the truth. And the truth takes some time to come out, in what we're seeing anyway. And so I think it's never a bad thing just to take a pause.
That's right.
Take a pause, take a breath. So we did that, and look what happened, I think less than 24 hours later. And if you would, Joel, cue up the video of President Trump's response with the F-bomb, because as much as
right.
I
don't know if it just... Not be so haughty, like we know everything, like just relax and show some humility. You know what I mean? I'm not for the infighting either. I disavow infighting. It's happening really badly in the conservative movement. It's happening among J6ers, unfortunately. I find it to be ego-based and spiritual. And there's a point where people need to learn to find common ground and common bonds, which we have way more than we don't. So stick with that. It's simple to me. And what you said about discourse, debate, opinions, hard questions, we criticize the left because they cancel us, and they did that for the last 4 years especially, but then we cancel each other, when somebody says something. Well, you may not agree with everything out of Charlie or Candace or Tucker or Cash or Joe Rogan's mouth or Trump's, and neither do I, so it's fine. Another point tied to that is the idea that, I'll use an example of friends that would ask me months ago, how do you feel about Elon Musk? And I've certainly got multiple opinions, and it's not the point I'm making to go into all my opinions about him. But my answer was usually, I think he can play a role, but I don't trust that he wants to put robots in my brain. I'm not for that personally, to put it, as brief as possible. But my point is this: God uses Brandon Straka, who has a different orientation than I have. God uses Elon Musk, who probably has a different worldview or faith than a lot of people have. God uses Trump, who has a mouth that a lot of people don't approve of or whatever. They're missing the point. God uses, let me say it slow for the people in the back. God uses broken people like me and like you, and he always has. Moses stuttered. David was essentially an adultering, murderous hater who ended up writing all the Psalms, and he was a man after God's own heart, is what it was said about
Moses
him. So
murdered too.
God uses broken people. Oh, is that?
Right?
Oh, throw him in there then.
He did. Like, I remember talking to my girls about that, and they were like, wait, really? Yeah. Like, anyway, keep going. Sorry, I ruined your flow.
I mean, no, it's all right. You got it exactly. I mean, so God uses everybody, and it's all for one common goal. And if we want to frame it in the America first context, I guess, everybody plays a role and contributes a part. I mean, what if Elon never does another thing and sails off into the Martian sunset or whatever? He's already contributed a crap load of stuff by what he did with Doge and cleaning up stuff. Really, basically just saying, here's all the money we audited that is yours. 360 plus a million Americans' money, and
which, by the way, I don't understand his obsession with Mars, but to each his own, man. Let live and let live. That's fine. I don't care if I ever go to Mars. In fact, I'm never going to Mars. I don't care if he gets there or not. I have no desire to leave the planet, but
exactly.
To each his own.
Exactly. Everybody plays a role, though. I'll take it.
Everybody plays a role. And so to that, I love the clip from President Trump here. You know what? One of the things that drew me to him, even though I wasn't a big Trump supporter in 2016, I did vote for him in the general. I didn't in the primary, but he grew on me because he's so flipping real. He's so authentic. And a lot of folks say he's a narcissist, and maybe he is, and they're concerned about whether or not he's honest. I don't have that concern because the guy he speaks his mind. He speaks what's on his heart. And I feel like we're seeing more of a change in him in terms of his spirituality, because when he came out after the strike and he announced it, he must have thanked God like a bunch of times. That I've never seen him do that before. And he started doing that after he was shot at on July 13th. So Joel, if you've got that video queued up of the F-bomb, let's play it.
I agree. He did it the other day too.
I just want to see it.
Oh, yeah.
So roll it.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
There's the boss man. He's not at all happy, basically, because they were asking him. The media was like, well, what do you think? The ceasefire. So 24 hours later, let's go back to the news. What happened? So it looked like it worked. And I was like, dang, thank you. I remember even asked my husband, like, how did he know that is how it was going to pan out? Because just like Rick said, this is risky, but it looked really good. And then wheels appeared to kind of come off the bus, but not fully after that. And the reporter, what you just saw, was asking President Trump, what do you think? And he was saying, I'm not happy with either one of them. Basically, they've been fighting forever. It's because they don't know what they're doing. And that to me just shows his authenticity and the realness, the human that he really is. And so I think I'm behind him. I definitely, that heightened my confidence in his leadership, and I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Doesn't mean we won't ask questions or hold him accountable, and we're not going to agree with everything that he does. But I think we just, like Rick said, we need to pray. We need to pray for peace. We need to pray for our nation, pray for protection, and just let the chips fall where they may, and kind of see what happens. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, 100%. I agree. I'm for him. And again, back to my point about how we're just such couch experts about everything, and I've probably been that in the past maybe. But how about we focus on another concept where that's being in your lane, doing what you can contribute. Maybe that's, I said it at the house the other night. Maybe your contribution to the world is creating or being an artisan or making butter, because we were in Pennsylvania when I was talking with you and your husband at the house. But maybe that's running for local election. Maybe that's podcasting like you do. Maybe that's writing the book like I just did. Whatever that looks like, and there may be many things throughout our lives. But how about focus on contributing your part? Because it's easy. It's like the man in the arena quote by Teddy Roosevelt. It's in the book, actually, Fowler book. But it's not the critic who counts. It's the man whose face is actually marred by mud and sweat and dirt. And I'm butchering it big time. But the idea is that it's the man who goes out there and valiantly is trying and maybe fails, but fails toward impact, fails toward success, fails toward a noble cause, rather than sitting around armchair quarterbacking everything people do. Like, you're so lofty and so qualified and so perfect, and I just don't relate because I'm not perfect. I'm very aware of it. And there you have it.
Thank you for that, Joel. Nice. It does look nice. So let's pivot. The next thing let's talk about, I brought him on here really to give us an update and talk about his next venture. This is something that I know Brad's been thinking about for a while. It's been on his heart for really years. And so tell us about this, Brad. What made you, and you can pre-order it. That's what you're seeing on the screen right now. If you're watching this as opposed to listening on Spotify, you can pre-order the book, and I highly recommend it. I can't wait to get mine. In fact, I probably should go do that tonight when we are done here with the podcast. What made you decide to write the book? What made you decide to write the book, and how did you pull the trigger? Because I know you've been thinking about this a long time.
That's a great question. And by the way, that's like the long form version of the site at the bottom. It's really thevalorbook.com. You can see it maybe in the private chat, or somebody can put it in the comments, thevalorbook.com, but that's all right. We'll solve that later. I knew that all that I went through, and the travesty of injustice and near death and trauma and PTSD and essentially torture at the hands of that administration prior, needed to be told. And part of me, half of me is like, well, I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to write a book. I don't want to endure this. I don't want to go through the effort and the cost and the time. And it is a labor of love. It's a project. It's very challenging. But by the way, it kind of got kicked into gear around March, I believe it was. I got referred to an incredible publisher. It happens to be Christian, called Rookie Publishing, if you guys want to write that down, in Pennsylvania, in your state, someone you know really well. And that really turned the tide. We had numerous, really one great chat, and then numerous chats about what that looks like, what the process, how does that look, because I've never done it, obviously. This is my first. Hopefully it's the worst one ever, and they only get way better from here. But I think the authenticity in it is going to help impact a lot of people, because I'm an honest dude. I tell the truth brutally, and I'm trying hard to not write in any way where it comes across as victim mentality, because that's not me. But there is struggle bus, and it comes fast and furious, like drinking from a fire hydrant, And so I have to taper that with all the serendipities and the moments like dating my mom and like the things God delivered me from and all the positives, because there's so many positives. Like I'm out, I'm free, I'm vindicated. And my hope is that the book will impact other patriots. I think that's the big market for it, is people that are patriots and conservatives on the right primarily. Maybe some other folks will read it in time, and maybe it can become kind of a history tale at some point down the road. Maybe I'm not even here anymore. I don't know, but it can really tell the true history, because it's so real and honest of what this horror was like, but what I saw and what I felt. And I'm not here to like expose or kind of go off in that kind of way. I'm really sharing like what my life has been like through this, but I try to weave in stories. Like one toward the end I've been working on lately is about a character from the Patriot movie in 2000 with Mel Gibson. It's Benjamin Martin. It's kind of like an adaptation of one or maybe two real life people that are unnamed. But anyway, he's fought in the French and Indian Wars. He's learned these tactics. He's tired, presumably just wants to farm, and like I'm not interested in like killing people or being killed. And so he's sort of a pacifist in a way. He gets invited to a Congress in South Carolina where he lives. And it's not until the redcoats show up in his yard, and his boy, who's pissed, lunges, and he's probably 14, 15, lunges at this redcoat who murders him. He murders his Benjamin Martin's son, Mel Gibson's character's son. Well, now he's all in, right? Like he's fully thrust into it. And the passion and the rage and the grief and whatever else overcomes him. And so he ends up turning the tide of the American Revolution. And I share stories like that in there to just point to other people and kind of shift the spotlight off myself in the book, I guess, a little bit at times, and talk about how that is valor. That's a man of valor. There's men and women like that. And I'm working on finding females as well, because valor has no gender, right? Heroism, courage has no gender. And how he made that choice to do the right thing and it got really brutal as he becomes a colonel and leads many, many people. And like I said, we find victory later. But it's the same with me. Like I didn't always feel courageous behind bars when they're giving you porridge and soy patties and they're torturing you with echoes and isolation and putting you purposefully in dangerous situations where something really awful was happening. I was even begging for God to take my life. I was begging for something bad to happen. I could check out of here, which is such a profoundly foreign, and I don't know the word for it, moment to find yourself in life. If you've ever been that low in a pit. And I've been in other
breaking out a little bit, so I'll just jump into
my life in pits, but not because I'm not a type person. Usually very
I'll fill in a little bit of the gaps while he's breaking out.
So Brad and I,
he had never actually been to my house before, so he walked in and I showed him the steps. My husband had ripped up carpet and our steps. He made our steps really pretty, and I was able to say to Brad, I was sitting right there actually when you called me from jail, and we prayed together and cried together, and man, we've just got some crazy history together. So sorry to interrupt. You were roboting in and out, so I thought I'd give some context there while you're chatting.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi was roboting in and out, but yeah, I think I was touching on the courage that you walk in even when you don't feel like it. And that's a big theme in this book, Valor. So I knew it had to be told. I knew I had to try to gather all my thoughts, memories, emotions, good and bad, and then later on organize it in the right flow. And that's why a good publisher like I recommended can do that for you, like they've helped me. And just to get it all out, and even though it's not always easy, but to tell the tale. And I think of the next thing it leads me into, and a lot of J6 are saying this, that I'm speaking with or meeting up with at dinners and luncheons and stuff, is that we're all very frustrated that we feel like we've become old news and that the tale is over with, and they want, and we want, and I want the narrative to be corrected. I know you burn for that very passionately, but that the narrative is fully corrected. And that might be a long journey. That might be a long historical process. It's very possible, but that's what our intention is, basically.
So if we don't tell these stories, like, who else is going to tell the stories? I say this all the time. I feel like a broken record. I expected after the pardon for people like Brad and anybody else really to be paraded all over the Tuckers and the Rogans and the Fox News and all of that. Let's tell the story about how the government completely railroaded innocent American citizens. I mean, Tucker went dangerously close to the edge, got himself fired from Fox for basically releasing the tapes that showed the real mostly peaceful protest, not the Summer of Love, where a handful and a crowd of millions likely instigated the whole thing, which is how it got out of hand in the first place. And I thought that those stories would get told so we could set the record straight for the American people and they could understand that January 6th is not an insurrection. So again, I started this episode saying it's up to you and I, and Rick goes in really good detail in Rebuilding Liberty, where he talks about this. It is up to us. We cannot wait on our elected officials. We cannot wait on anything. Jesus is coming back someday. We don't know when. Until then, duty is ours, results are God's, and it is up to us to get the narrative right, which is one of the reasons why I had Brad back. I'll have him anytime he wants to come on if he has updates to give you, and why I want to have more and more J6ers on here to tell their story, to share their perspective, because we have to control this. Clearly, the mainstream media and even alternate media sources that have huge platforms and followings, they're not going to do it. And that's probably one of the most disappointing things about getting Trump back in and seeing the pardon come to fruition is them not set the record straight. And so again, if you're with family and friends and you hear them say something that leads you to believe they don't really understand what happened on January 6th, share this podcast with them. I'm sure there's others. It sounds like a lot of J6ers are doing podcasts, but share the stories of the real people with them. I think that's our best weapon against the false narrative that the deep state is really hanging on to and clutching onto, because they don't want the truth to get out there. And people like Brad, you are networking your butt off and starting to get to know other J6ers and just connect with them and get them involved in what you're doing with Man of Valor. Tell us, what are you seeing out there with other J6ers like yourselves? What are they dealing with? How are they coping? What are they going through? Give us a pulse for what the community looks like right now.
Okay. I think we're all rebuilding, and it's hard to speak. Obviously, I can't speak blanket terms over 1,500 people, but I've certainly met dozens in person, on Facebook and whatnot, and spoken with some that I'm now friends with. And I've got one in my town that I'm great friends with who's on here. Just a warrior, great, incredible, authentic, amazing brother. And first of all, there's an unspoken, guy or girl, young or old, there's an unspoken bond that's really unique. I will tell you, it's very surreal when you get around one another and get around each other. I'll also say that my observations are that everyone that I've met who's a J6er is about as normal as you can possibly imagine. Teacher, farmer, stay-at-home mom, grandma, son, just normal people. You know what I mean? Not to say they're not exceptional, but just totally normal. And I would say that applies to me as well. I've never been, I don't know, a criminal, famous, whatever, till this. And I agree with you. I don't want to go on shows. I don't want to be in the spotlight because there comes so much risk and stress from what we've seen with that. But sometimes a hero has to go and do the hard thing like that, because if it can amplify the message and get it out and be a force multiplier, that's what media can do. And so I'm noticing that there's hope and there's rebuilding. I'm also noticing some are really struggling, but I have noticed a real clear difference between those who have faith in Christ and would call themselves Christians, like you and I, and a lot of the listeners probably have this joy about them. They have this hope about them that kind of far exceeds the adversity and the challenge, And so I've seen some others who my heart breaks. I've spoken around panels of multiple different J6ers, and I can see in my mind's eye right now tonight as we speak a couple that they don't know the Lord. They're just kind of out going wild. They're dealing with insurmountable grief. They're super traumatized with PTSD, and I fully empathize and relate because I've had tons of it. There's days, even 4 years in, where I wonder about my own future at times, and those are moments. They're not reality. They're not who my identity is. They're not who God says I am, which is His Son, and I'm delivered and healed. But he has done so much of that work in me over time. And it's taken just doing normal things, outdoors, nature, gym, relationships, being kind to random people, all kinds of stuff, working hard. And some of them are not quite putting all that together, and they're really battling. And so I don't know what to say here to make that connection with the listener or the future listener to those people. But, asking questions and having conversations, get to know them, care about them, reaching out. And there's some folks who have done amazing like that. And there's folks on here like Tina, a friend of mine in PA that you could connect to me with, she got to be with one of our fallen brothers, Bart, who just passed away a couple of days ago, Bart Shively. He was a Marine. He was a born-again believer, and he passed on. But he dealt with a serious travesty that was so evil in jail with chemo and lack of help while he was in there. She's got to be his hospice care helper. I hope that's all right to say. She and Brett, my buddy on here I mentioned, and others got to go jailbreak the people when they got pardoned, get the J6 inmates, get these patriots out and put them in their cars and help them, feed them, take them somewhere, drive them wherever. There's Patriot Mail Project ladies, like a lady named Kathy that's a friend of mine, a lady named Lydia, who are in South Carolina, who have written to so many J6ers. And those things make a huge difference. I mean, I'm reading letters, and I'm sitting physical letters that came from inmates, and I've met some of these inmates, and I'm blown away. I'm like, I bunked with him. I know this guy, and I won't drop those names right now, but it just blew me away to see some of the things that folks have done, which is really great. So I wanted to decide.
Yep. He's breaking out a little bit again. Joel, so I just sent you, I'm glad you mentioned the guy at Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, Brett Shively, I think his name is. I'm glad you mentioned that because Sarah Maccabee, my friend Kern Colton, which she is working so hard to rebuild their life. And I really want to get her and Colton back on the podcast for an update of how things are going. But she did text me this past week, and they are actually Stand in the Gap is raising money to help Brett's wife with the funeral expenses. And Joel, when you get a chance, I did send you that in our Signal chat. So if you'll put that, look at you. So
Bart,
standing in the Bart, not Brett, Bart, Stand in the Gap .foundation/Bart. If you have a heart for these people, especially Pennsylvania, this is one of our own, passed away. Lord only knows the torture that he went through. What's a little bit of his story, Brad? Do you know like how long, he spent in prison? Do you know any of his story?
I don't know a ton, but I know he was in the DC Gulag. He was with other inmates that I know their names are pretty notable names or whatnot. Shane Jenkins is one of them from Texas. And he just really was railroaded big time. I mean, you're dealing with cancer in there, and you're put in isolation, and they're not giving you the care that you need. And certainly you don't have the ability to like rest and be at home and have nature and sunlight and other things that could help, other modalities or whatever. But it's a pretty crazy situation. But, he got baptized in there allegedly, and he found Christ at some point along the way. I don't know if that was before jail or during, but he seems to be one of our warriors, man, a special guy.
I'm just going to read a little bit of this so people know who he is. He fought non-Hodgkin's lymphoma linked to contaminated water at Camp Lejeune with remarkable grit and faith until his passing on June 22nd of 2025, inspiring his family, friends, and fellow patriots. Even during his incarceration, Bart's warm spirit and steadfast beliefs built a strong community that continues to honor him. Stand in the Gap is dedicated to ensuring Bart receives the tribute he earned, and we need your support to make his final wishes a reality. So, of course, all of this stuff is going to be in the show notes that I send out on Friday. So keep an eye. If you are not subscribed to my Substack, go to tonyshoop.substack.com and join the list as a free subscriber so that you can get the show notes, because I'm including all these links now in the show notes that the goal is to put out. I've been pretty good. This will be week 4. I'm putting them out the Friday after the show. Gives me some time to get everything orchestrated and packaged in a way that is pleasing to the eye, and more people will be able to read it. And so we'll get that in there. And if you can share that around, it'd be much appreciated. Again, he's a Pennsylvania resident and J6er. And I shudder to think what they put him through in jail. And if he was sick then, because I know there were others that were sick inside jail and they weren't getting the medical care. You included, Brad, were not getting the medical care that they needed. And
that's a fact. That's a fact.
Pray for his family. And if you can help him out, there's the link. We'll get it in the show notes. We are winding down. We are almost 55 minutes in. I did want to cover, Brad, one more. If you have any parting thoughts, be thinking about that. I want to cover one more current event that I didn't get a chance to talk a whole lot about. And it was the Lindell trial. So Mike Lindell was June 2nd in Denver, Colorado, went on trial against Eric Coomer for defamation. And it was a long one. Thank you, Ash in America and Badlands Media, for covering that. Ash was the only reporter I saw that was doing a really deep dive in daily reports. And I was struggling just to follow the things that she was putting out because it was so intricate and so detailed, so confusing. I can't imagine what it was like to actually be there and have to be putting all that stuff together. Of course, that is her job. So support Ash in America on Substack if you could. And thank you again, Ash. Shout out to you for your incredible work on that. Specifically, I read every single day and was really waiting for the testimony when the machine, Alex Halderman, the machines, and I think it was Harry Hursty, who was also a cybersecurity expert, had testified. Here's my ultimate takeaway. I'm very disappointed that more of the vulnerabilities did not come to light in that trial. And I think that falls on the attorneys. I don't know why the Lindell attorneys didn't focus a little bit more on that. Of course, I know that they weren't trying to prove that the machines have vulnerabilities and are hackable, but yet I feel like that was a really good opportunity to at least highlight that. And I didn't see it in any of the notes. That was kind of a bummer, but I guess the win, if there is a win, Lindell, I've heard my inside sources say that he's very happy about the outcome because MyPillow was not held liable. Basically what they were suing not just Mike Lindell, but MyPillow and Frank Speech. And so the danger is this: if that MyPillow would have been found liable and that would not have gone the right direction, is that any company, and this is kind of still not a great turnout for Frank Speech, any platform that you post something on can be held liable for something if you are saying something that you know is a lie and it can be proven to be false defamation. The platform that it's on can be liable. So thankfully, MyPillow, which wasn't even a platform, is a company that Lindell also owns. That could have set a really bad, dangerous precedent. So it is a win in a lot of ways for free speech, but we do have an uphill battle. Lindell still does have to pay. He was ordered to pay, 2-point-something million in fines to Eric Coomer for defamation. He wanted like 50 or 60 million. I believe Lindell is appealing it. So we'll just have to keep our eyes on that. But again, the machines are not secure. We do not have transparent elections until we can see everything that's going on when they count the votes and when they report the actual results. And that's what Audit the Vote is working diligently on to get towards in Pennsylvania. Any thoughts on, I don't know, Brad, if you followed that, if you have any opinions on that, or some parting thoughts kind of before we wind down, but the floor is yours. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I can't really add to it, and I'm not super up to speed because I haven't read up on that one, but I would agree with what you said, and I'll just roll with that. And it's a big precedent, like you said, for free speech. So I think it comes down to publisher versus platform, and they've been debating this topic like Facebook and Google and all this kind of stuff too. So I say
what are your I am for free. If you are for free speech, it shouldn't matter. Publish, platform, whatever. The First Amendment protects free speech. It doesn't matter what it's said on, whether they're arguing like the law. This is what bugs me so much about the courts and the law, is they're arguing about semantics and nuances when free speech is free speech. Like nobody, it shouldn't be liable. That's just where I stand.
It doesn't matter if you wrote it on a chalkboard or said it or sang it. Yeah, yes. Free speech is free speach.
Like, who cares? Exactly. How did we get so into the nuances of all of this that you can actually sue a platform for putting something on it that they didn't even necessarily vet or not? I think it's a huge violation.
That's what a litigious society gets you, and that's Satan is the author of legalism, and so that's what you get is jot and tittle and every little nuance and every little phrase, and instead of the main idea of what's going on here,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay focused on what it is he's called me to do. I hope all January 6ers, I hope everybody listening, I hope every human being in this country focuses on that. And what is it that I can contribute? What am I doing to contribute to society? And I think developing leadership skills, working on yourself, finding your strong suits, and not going into something that's a weak area. I'm not a wedding planner. Like I told you the other day, I'm not an admin guy. I'm a big picture visionary. I'm a leader. I'm an influencer. And I don't mean that in the way like drinking protein shakes as much as like just making a difference in people's lives, And so I've paid a dear price. I paid a dear price today. I had a horrendous day with a lot of rough moments and news and emotions and whatever. But so what? We're working toward an end, and that is overcoming by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And it's accomplishing. That's what success is, accomplishing what you were created and put on earth to do, right? That would be success, not the pink Ferrari yellow Lamborghini, or how much you stacked up like Warren Buffett or whatever else. You know, I heard the pastor, Jonathan Shuttlesworth, that I had the honor to go hear on Sunday morning there in North Pittsburgh? You know, not what you're stacking up here, but that you can be blessed here as well. I think it just froze up or something.
Yeah, the connection is not the greatest, but we're working through it. I'm going through some of the comments. Tina, yes, Bart Shively. I'm glad we got to that. You got a lot of friends on here. Brett AR15 saying, "You're my boy Blue. Love you, Brad." Thank you guys for watching and for sharing this. Kelly Stewart is not a resident in Pennsylvania. He lives in Texas. And so, unfortunately, no, he cannot vote with his felony background, or I should say felony charges that have been commuted, but not a full pardon yet. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm just looking through the comments as we wind down. Brad, if your connection's any better and you have some parting thoughts. And then we have our funny video this week is going to be my children, my two little monkeys, the youngest and the middle, shot a video on my phone 2 days ago while we were swimming at our local water park area, and it cracked me up. So I'm testing to see if it cracks the rest of you up. That's what we're going to end on. But I also want to announce, please stay tuned. We have a power-packed summer with new guests. I connected with Mike Smith, the producer of Out of Shadows. You remember that documentary, Brad, that like totally blew the lead?
That was legend.
Wasn't it? Oh, it launched of all times. Yes. My birthday is the day that went live, and they launched it April 10th of 2020. I will never forget it. I ambushed him at a General Flynn event in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago and got his number. Oh, yeah. And he has agreed to come on the podcast. I just don't know when. And then I'm going to shift gears and just go where the Lord leads me. And we have a very good friend that Brad knows also that kind of did life with us for a long time. Her name is Amy Vino. She's from the eastern side of Pennsylvania, but her and her husband Ethan now live in Columbus, Ohio, where they have their two boys. And she's had a huge victory with overcoming obstacles with infertility. She really struggled to get pregnant, and they were able to get through it with a lot of different things. They did not have to go the medical route, and that's, of course, not putting anybody down that has chosen to do that. Don't take it that way. But she has a story of victory. She wrote a book about her story, and she's got devotionals. And her and I are great friends. She knew me way before politics, and just thought, you know what? Let's get her on here. Let's try to get a little bit of a different audience. Of course, everything comes down to elections in my mind. If we can't get the right people in office, nothing really is going to matter moving forward. But I want to give her a chance to tell her story for a lot of different reasons. I think you guys will be blessed from it. So stay tuned. That's coming later this summer. And other J6ers that we're going to have visiting back that I need to circle up with as well. We're going to have a really cool lineup of guests for all those folks. I know, right? Lola Days, Mike.
Awesome.
She is awesome. And as many other, and I'm going to be, of course, in Fredericksburg. So I fly out next week on, it must be Wednesday, July 2nd. Me and the entire family is going to be in Fredericksburg on the Patriot Academy campus, staying till the 19th. And so I will be doing the next 2 weeks from the Patriot Academy campus. So that's going to be really fun. I don't have anything to promote.
That's down the street from where I lived when I was there.
Oh, it's so cool. I can't wait. I don't know who I'm going to be able to wrangle in, if it's a green kid or if it's Rick himself or somebody other speakers that he brings in. I'm making stay tuned for surprise guests from Fredericksburg, Texas on the Patriot Academy campus. That'll definitely be the next 2 weeks. So we're going to have a blast with that. Brad, some parting thoughts, and then we'll have Joel roll the funny video with my two kiddos. You guys let me know if it was funny. Like, share, and subscribe, please. If you're on Spotify or Apple, follow us. And if you're blessed with finances and feel led to do so and like our work, vet our work first, please. Do not give us a dime without looking into who we are and what we've done. And you can ask us any questions about anything, anytime. But we are auditthevotepA.com. Go to /donations and feel free to support us with your money. It will go to saving elections in Pennsylvania, insisting on a transparent reporting and counting process. So final parting thoughts, Brad, all yours.
Absolutely, man. You're crushing it. Take courage, be of good cheer, take heart, let's walk this out for the rest of our lives. The callings that we have that I was mentioning. Fredericksburg was like 20 minutes from where I lived in Texas. That's really, I think, where Man of Valor, I haven't even hardly mentioned it, but I'll mention it right now. So it's a good point, right? When we're closing up. So that was kind of where that was birthed in my heart. And the vision was basically all the camps that I got to go to in my life. This is before J6, and all of the experiences I got to have seeing transformation at camps that boys and girls get to have, but men really don't have them. And so it started to grow in my heart, and now it's coming to life here soon. A website called manofvalorus.com. You can find me on socials at Man of Valor US, MANOF Valor US. And what it's going to be is a membership base, a brotherhood. There's going to be different levels of participation. There's going to be resources, how to be of noble character, how to be healthier, how to be a better man, how to get healed and past all your wounds and hurts and all that trauma and all that stuff. And then camps, live camp experiences that guys can come to that are being crafted right now, where you can shoot and throw axes and cook wild, game and eat bear and venison out in Chile and get around the bonfire and just bond with other brothers and create lifetime friendships and really make something out of your life and get yourself plugged into doing something great and be free while you're doing it. Teach freedom and then expand it and multiply it everywhere else. So when I talk about venture and being in my lane, that's really what I believe God's called me to do right now. And so it's a huge undertaking, but with God, all things are possible and we can make that happen. But this has been awesome, minus whatever connection. I'm so very sorry, but this has been great. And I look forward to hearing from anybody that wants to reach out. If I can help anyone as a human being, manofvalorus.com. I see it's a little bit different at the bottom there.
Yeah, I stuck it in the chat, manofvalorus.com. I did put it in the chat. So if you're following along, and we will get the correct link in the show notes. And so, yeah, I want to get updates, Brad. We'll definitely have you back because I want to get updates as this unfolds, as you start to build it out, as the book launches. You can pre-order Brad's book now. I will get that link also in the show notes. But if you want to support a J6er who's a good friend of mine over 20 years, go order his book, read his story, share it with other people. This is truly the rebuilding of our nation from the ground up. It is ready, set, go time. So thank you for coming. And Message Diva, I don't know, Massage Diva, I'm not sure who that is, but she's saying, blessed to know Brad, great human and warrior. Massage Diva, I would fully concur with that assessment. So Joel, cue up our funny video. Let's see if people think my kids are as funny as I think they are. Ready? Roll it.
Stay tuned for next video. What? I just say says. All right. Okay. Welcome to the poopy roller contest today. We're gonna do a race. Please subscribe and stay tuned for next video. All right. Bye. Bye.
You can stop it now. That is my two little monkeys. My youngest, Hallie. My middle one is Juliet. Hallie is clearly the spokesperson. I think she said something like, subscribe and stay tuned for our next video. I heard poopy in there somewhere. I'm not quite sure where it was, but I found that on my phone after they rolled down the hill, and I thought, this is some good material. Oh, Liberty Line. Yes, David Barton. If he's there, you better believe if there's like somebody there that we admire tremendously, I will be wrangling them as best I can. So stay tuned. We'll be on the fly. I'm flying down there, so I can't make any promises as far as exactly where I'll be or what it's going to look like. Thank you, Massage Diva. I'm glad you find them adorable. I do as well. Of course, I'm incredibly biased, but we're very blessed. And it was awesome, Brad, to spend some time with you and Lisette, have you over for dinner and just get to see the inner workings of the Shoup family. It does my heart good to see someone like Brad watch my girls climb all over my husband and just say how good of a dad my husband is. It's a testimony really from the Lord, because when I met him before we got married, he didn't want a family, didn't want kids, and we both got saved together in our 20s, and he's an incredible dad. And I'm
Praise
so
God, he is.
So awesome that you got to see that, and it blessed my heart that you got to share that with us. So awesome. Thank you guys for watching. Like, share, subscribe, auditthevotepa.com. Donate if you can, and we will see you next week from Fredericksburg, Texas.
Let's
Have a good
go.
night.